Yet, they are some of the best arts that we see around us. The Western model is more individualistic. You have Michelangelo, so you know this is Michelangelo. You know Sistine Chapel, you know this thing.
But he also had hundreds of other artists worked with him.
Yes.
Like the temples.
Who you don't know.
So
Yeah.
the temples.
So I think the basic problem really is what I see. Now that we are getting into the same kind of a marketization or the globalization mode, where the individual has become more important than the community. What you see today, those problems will continue. Thank you. I think I know
Thank you so much. So now, may I invite anybody who is observation, a comment, a question, anything, because I would really like to extend this.
Geeta?
Yes,
Pratibha?
please. Okay.
जतिन साहब आपने अभी बात की कि वीवर्स हैं, आर्टिस्ट हैं और आईटी को देखते हुए इनके खत्म होने का खतरा है। ये खतरा मैं जब स्टूडेंट थी तब से मैं महसूस कर रही हूँ। कोटा वीवर्स के साथ मैंने काम किया है करीब 10 साल और उनसे मैं कहते कहते थक गई कि साड़ी से सूट पर आ जाओ, वो नहीं आते थे। अल्टीमेटली उनकी खड्डियाँ चेंज करवाई और तब वो सूट पर आए। और इस तरह के खतरे तमाम वीवर्स के साथ हैं, तमाम आर्टिस्ट के साथ हैं, क्योंकि नई जनरेशन पढ़ना चाहती है। एक एक दो दो बच्चे जब हम फैमिली प्लानिंग की बात करते हैं तो वे फॉरवर्ड क्या है?
Yeah, I think our discussion is going on a wrong thing. That whether there is future for art, we are not gospel makers, So what I'm saying is a practitioner, what I was saying, I have deep interest in the tradition and contemporary both. Even certain kind of work I may not do, but when I see it's exciting, I enjoy it also. But if I tell you, in Venice Biennale, in 1978, I had participated, and 71 in the Paris Biennale. In the Paris Biennale, there were 50 mirrors like this room, and women were taking all their clothes off and putting on, and there was reflection. Okay, this is one. In Venice Biennale in 78, there were two things. There was a very dear friend of mine who was a painter from Israel, Menashe Kadishman, who used to paint, who paints sheep heads only. And he's like the Picasso of Israel. And he brought 10-20 sheep into the real sheep, put some color on it and let them loose. So there was a sensation. Kindly mark this very carefully. And there was a Mark Boyle, a painter from England, who had a large phallic of 15 feet on a jeep went around the Biennale. So in the evening, I knew Menashe Kadishman, I didn't know this young man. So I said, what kind of work you do? He laughed. He said, I don't do this, I paint. I did it only for the Venice Biennale to draw attention of the press and the public. Likewise. So what is happening in the West, it's a what you call, it's what something is finished, what do you call, whatever. So everybody is making, in New York you have a copy of the Venus. Somebody doing on that. This is a spent force. So when I'm saying, Kamala Devi Chaturvedi said something fantastic. He said, Jati, the sari will survive, the weavers will survive of our country because women wear saris. What a simple, beautiful expression. Likewise, if we have the Chinese, so let's look at the contemporary situation. If you buy the diya, you can use it as an ashtray, you put chana, so the potter will make more diya, and also oil lamp maybe. But 99% of the craftspeople, what they call craftspeople, they are real artists of our country. Our contemporary, in our schools and art colleges and architecture colleges, vernacular architecture, traditional arts and crafts is not taught. The syllabus is wonky. So that is the fear. So it's not optimism and pessimism at play. I've also been a professor, so I understand this. I gave up teaching. Because nobody wants to learn art. Do you know all over the country, the art colleges, the boys and girls, and more girls go, those who are not doing well in their studies, तो जाकर थोड़ा आर्ट बार्ट सीख लो, फिर शादी हो जाएगा. So anyway, that's it. Thank you.
May I add your attention to 2-3 facts. One, this country still has perhaps the largest craft population that any other country in the world has. We have 1% of our population involved in crafts, still, in spite of all the difficulties and what we have. Second, the issue was raised about culture policy. When I came to Delhi in '92, one of the first tasks given to me by the then culture secretary, I came as the joint secretary, you have to draft a national culture policy. So I made a draft. And I said, but let us involve the whole artistic community, cultural community. So we had a national colloquium on that. We had 2 reports of parliamentary standing committee, or whatever it is called, on that. Then came, this was done during Arjun Singh's time, then came Madhavrao Scindia, whose main job was to undo everything that Arjun Singh had done. So he decided that it's no longer necessary to have a culture policy. So the idea was given up. Then, when Jagmohan became Minister of Culture, since I happened to know him, and I ran into him, Jagmohan, yes, he was Minister of Culture, and I reminded him, both verbally and wrote him a letter, that maybe it would need upgrading, revision, etc. Nothing happened. About 5 years ago, when Abhijit Singh Gupta was Secretary Culture, another committee was formed to look at the national culture policy. We made another draft. It was said there were ideologically there were problems. One was the misunderstanding, which even people like Ghulam Sheikh had that misunderstanding, that how can a state, how can government prescribe policy for culture? Our argument was that government is not prescribing policy for culture. Government is only prescribing policy for itself. What role the state should play, its institutions should play, because after all, you have these institutions, you have the National Museum and National Gallery and the National Academies and this, that and the other. So there is an unspoken policy, which is not in the public domain, which meant that if you have a policy document, which only, and I said culture in this country, vis-a-vis state, is only 10%. The rest of the 90% culture is created by individuals and communities, etc. And the government will have no role there. So what was decided? That there should be a small statement and there should be a plan of action. The plan of action was prepared and all that. Again the government changed and then the matter rested. I reminded again, because I became chairman of the National Academy, so I reminded the government that there was a national culture policy document. Let us have a look at it again, because all these issues of ideology, technology, this, that and the other, you have things which scenes have changed, documentation, etc. Nothing happened. There is a possibility that if a ideologically very strong, robust government comes, it might try to put its own ideology through this kind of a document. But on the other hand, there are enough cultural, enough public institutions that the government cannot get away with it. So, the policy document was saying that this 0.1% over a period of time should be raised to 1%.
Ashok, can I interrupt you and ask you a question? How would cultural policy impact 3 issues? One, this enormous imitation that is happening in the arts that we're deriving from the West. 2, how would you stop art from becoming this, cockeyed investment product? And how would you stop the arts from becoming a show-off product? How would cultural policy
Cultural policy, quite frankly, cannot address any of these. So I am not saying that cultural policy will solve your problems. I am only, because of this.
Why are we going on not about cultural policy. Maybe what-
Somebody asked, the organizer asked.
But maybe the answer is that there may be a certain role for the government of the taxes that it collects to allow a certain amount of seed money that may be useful to creating some sort of infrastructure that the arts might need. And that is the end of the cultural policy. Why are we making this into such a big
And
thing?
it's not so simple.
Ashok, may I just one small sentence, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think culture will always require support from outside, whether it is patrons, like there used to be the emperors before, who would be able to spend the money, or it is an institution, organization, or the government. I think the point that Ashok made is very valid, really. The government will have to spend money on cultural development, cultural institutions. It is simply
Suresh, the National Museum of Delhi, I've been in this city now for 15 years. Will somebody please explain to me how I see the cultural policy of this country in the way the National Museum is run?
But Ashok, would you care to explain? I think this is basically what.
I mean, it's such a shoddy institution that can. Let's not talk in these big terms of cultural policy, and I mean they're very bright people, but I think they're wasting their time and energy in trying to do policy. Just make sure at least that you can have cleanliness, a certain focus, a certain maintenance, a certain dynamism in one simple institution like the National Museum of this country in its capital.
I think we're mixing up two things. I think there's a culture and art policy. There are two different things altogether. Culture is very large.
Mainly, I think, with the idea of kind of prioritizing areas which we need to look into. There are many dying art forms. We're not talking about just institutions. How do you prioritize those and save them? Because we go very ad hoc. With my 5 years of just being in the SME, I realized that we have a lot of dreams to be able to kind of plan things, but then the funding is not coming in at the right time. So some of the, and even as we are talking, some of the forms are really going to be extreme. So I think a policy in terms of just kind of prioritizing areas which need immediate attention, which need long-term nurturing, that's what I would understand would be a cultural policy that we need to.
Now let me answer it very briefly. National Museum, in spite of the attempt of the government to get a proper Director General, appointing search committees thrice, getting it out of the UPSC hold, failed to find a person. Why? Because it has not been planned that we will need such people after some time.
There's no training.
So there's no management training, culture management training. That will be an issue with the culture management and policy.
Hands up one of them. Yeah, there are many things.
And I think that, this is the one point we can all agree on, and that is that whether it is in the area of 0.01 becoming 1, or whether it is creating the structure for educating arts administrators and cultural managers, or whether it is simply honesty in fulfilling the goals that you set out with. And I have in mind the fact that the government has had this policy of 2% of a building's budget to be spent on art work for the last at least 25 years.
No, it was there during Nehru's time.
Right. It's been there since then. Do you know that just 2 months ago, I was told by a senior functionary of the Urban Arts Commission, you need to spend only about a few lakhs. I said, no, but we need to spend 2%. And that would work out to at least 10 lakhs. No, nobody does that.
Shanta, is corruption a cultural issue in your view?
100%.
It is?
Yes.
Okay.
So we
in your
can
cultural
end on
policy-
this note that we've got to find ways of ensuring that public institutions fulfill the role that they are asked to do. Carry out the laws that they are supposed to be carrying out. Be honest with that. That's not happening. This is a simple thing. How can an urban arts commission say this?
But Shanta, it's being interpreted that the outer coat of paint is the beautification.
I agree, I know what you mean, Rajiv, but
You know?
that's the issue.
I mean, that's really the,
yes, ma'am.
the thing.
Yeah, I like Jatinder's idea of history of culture.
Right.
And I think if that somehow can be incorporated in the school curriculum, somebody will first have to write it. One of
It's
the-
not it. It's not such a simple issue.
No,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
not.
Yeah.
It's not.
Huge ideological problems there.
No,
Very big
cultural-
tracks.
But it's required. There are,
Cultural,
I mean, everything has to be addressed. How it will be done
But
is a
it's
difficult.
something
Yes.
has
But
to
it
be
has to
done
be
because
addressed.
when children grow up with a love of culture and their ethnic arts and all, they will want to preserve it, they will want to look after the museum, they will take pride in it. But today there is no.
Whether you're talking of cleanliness or aesthetics, it all starts at home and primary school.
Yes, in
But-
school.
yeah.
And we have a gap, huge gap there. So the history of culture, I think, is very, very
You see, when the India Today and other institutions have been conclave for politicians, and there's that, big people, they're calling journalists. Do you know what they have for culture? Sarab Khan.
Yes.
So those are the things that we all need to be sensitive about, that where is culture in all this discussion and all this talk and all this, fulminations
Culture
about
is not
corruption?
building and dance.
Culture is the
Much
basic
larger issue.
mother's issue of everything. That's why I come back to things like sanskara and come back to our, very, very long heritage of so many wonderful arts. How can we possibly begin to appreciate them unless our young are taught about them? So is this all right that, we
Yeah,
give
I think-
our audience a chance now to breathe freely and, yeah, okay? Yeah.
That's
Thanks once again, and I don't know how to thank Shantaji for curating this wonderful discussion. Thank you,
Thank you,
Shakti
wonderful
ji.
speakers.
Thank you, Jatinda. Thank you, Mr. Bajpai. And thank you all. I'm very happy to see Geeta, Pratibha, people like Rajiv was here, Rita ji, and all of you. And I see lady here has come back again after a month. So nice of you. Our next thing will be on the next Pendulum Dialogue is on 23rd of May. Of course, we'll send you mails. Local and global issue of cultural identity.
Local versus global issues, so we have touched upon some. Whatever is left, we'll be happy to.
Yeah, and we have Dr. Amrit Srinivasan and Ambassador Lalit Man Singh to speak as speakers.
So
Thank you.
again.
I look forward to seeing you.